Thanks for joining us on the King Law Podcast, where we give you a lawyer's perspective on anything legal. Or not. From criminal law, personal injury, and trending legal topics, we're your back pocket legal guide. Are you ready to talk about the dog at the rave?
Yeah.
The dog at the rave?
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Okay.
Poor dog.
All right, so let's do some Reddit questions. Should I introduce you first?
Sure.
Okay. For any of you that have not seen our last video, Mike say your last
Caranante.
name. Wait, is that how you say it?
Caranante.
I've been saying it wrong.
You're close
I said
enough.
Caranante.
That's fine.
Okay.
Lack of respect.
It's all right.
If you had an accent, an Italian accent, how would you say it?
I don't know. I'm not Italian.
Sorry, I don't speak Italian.
Say Caranante.
Yeah, okay. But the inflection, the voice.
You can say it however you like.
Or
How about
as
that?
our new client says, Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah, I got Michael Kennedy the last few days. I'll take it.
You look like a Kennedy. You could be a Kennedy.
That's a compliment.
Yeah.
Hyannis Port. That's the Kennedy family, I think, right?
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
I'm ready.
All right, so off of Reddit, you refresh RZ says, question about a friend bitten by a drug search dog at a rave.
A friend.
This is for a friend.
For,
So, my friend was bitten by a drug-sniffing dog at a rave on Sunday. Staff did not take her issue seriously and threatened to kick her out when she raised the issue with them. She showed them a photo of the bite, and all they did was urge her to not post on social media. What, if anything, can be done about this?
Well, first of all, I think if I was a dog at a rave, I'd be agitated too.
But it sounds like a drug dog, like a police dog.
I don't think the analysis would be much different than a normal dog bite case. So, in New York, dog bites are strict liability, but you have to prove that the dog had a violent tendency, and that the owner knew or should have known of that tendency. And if you can, and you prove that the dog attacked a person or even another dog, they could be held liable.
So regardless if it was a government-owned animal?
I think so. And I think what's interesting is perhaps it's even easier to prove the violent tendency, because if you have a law enforcement dog, I guess it's possible that it was actually trained to bite people.
Right.
I don't know what Bob thinks about that.
What do you think?
I think he's right on. I think a dog's a dog. And whether you're the police or the guy who lives next door, if your dog is inclined to bite people, you can't have him out biting people.
Okay, so you think she could potentially file a suit?
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
I think so too.
Nice. All right, let's continue to talk about dogs. So, if a dog gets injured by another dog at a dog park, who's responsible? So, recently, a friend's dog was a little rough playing with another dog at a park and
Another
Another
friend.
friend. Asking
Everybody's
for a
got a
friend.
friend.
Both were off leash at a park that's not an official dog park in New York. It's used by a lot of dog owners. Most of them are off leash. The dog's not the owners. Just kidding. The owner of the other dog came back a few days later claiming their dog was injured and that they would be going to the vet. And almost a week later, they expected all the bills to be covered. Otherwise, they were going to call animal services and have them take the dog. I'm just wondering, is there any weight to what they want or have threatened? I'm of the opinion that dogs are dogs, and apart from an actual attack, there's going to be an overexcitement and rough housing aspect.
It's kind of an interesting fact pattern for what we would call assumption of the risk. Mm-hmm. So if you let your dogs play with other dogs, they're going to act like dogs. I think when you're doing the exact same thing, you're assuming some of that's going to happen, in my opinion.
Yeah, if they're both agreeing to let the dogs play together, I think that makes sense.
I also think it's funny when she says, I'm going to have animal control do something. As far as I know, animal control and the police rarely listen to what you want them to do.
Right.
So, but do you think it would make any difference if it was a dog park, like an official dog park?
Well, if you're talking, I mean, in terms of letting them play with each other?
In terms of there being an injury with an animal.
I think I think the same analysis will apply as to normal dog bite cases. If you had, even if you're at a dog park, like if you had a dog attack another dog and maul it at a dog park, I don't think that prevents liability. I think it's still a strict liability analysis.
You take your fighting dog to the dog park and say, go kill all the other dogs, and he does. That's not okay. Like,
Right. 'Cause
No.
You can't do that
Remember
just because you're in a
talking
dog
about-
park.
But also,
Right.
who would you sue in that case?
It would be
The owner?
Yeah, the owner. I think you would be, if they could prove a violent tendency, the
can't sue
owner
them.
would be strictly liable for damages, like say veterinary bills.
Right. But also,
Dogs don't have bank accounts.
That's what I was
You
going
can't
to
sue
say.
the dog.
Like
I mean,
we
you can sue
probably,
them, but I don't think they're going to answer.
right. But that's why we take cases where the person has been.
Yeah, we're a personal injury firm. And sometimes there is a little bit of a crossover. I know we just took the case there where the dogs,
Yeah.
it was a dog fight, and the person got in between the dogs trying to break him up. Then he became injured. So there is some of the vet bill aspect, but
Right.
but generally speaking,
Right, and dogs are property in New York.
Right.
So
So
you're
let's
gonna
say you
rarely.
had a champion dog who, let's do a different scenario. So I have a purebred champion dog who is in shows, and another dog from a park injures the dog and now cannot show. Now you have a loss of income.
do dogs get income?
No, but the owners do, and you own the dog.
How much? How much do they want
It would be like property damage.
Yeah. for whatever one of those dogs is worth?
Right,
And
and
then
the
it becomes-
cost of replacing the dog. Right, I
Right,
think
if
that's
it
fair game.
was, yeah.
Right, but I think it's very rare to be able to get kind of, I guess, punitive damages or emotional distress, right?
Right.
Because it's just property.
Which is so sad because, I mean, pets are family. So,
Right, your legislator.
Yeah. New York disagrees.
all right. Ooh, I like this. Okay, so recorded calls at work. When speaking to HR or someone in your company, the calls are recorded. Do they have to tell you the call is recorded?
No,
No?
not in New
Okay.
York. New York's a one-party state. As long as one party consents, you can record it. We can.
And you don't have to tell me.
Don't have to tell. Don't have to tell. But so what's that mean? What's not allowed? I can't wiretap a conversation between you and Mike because
That you're not a part of.
That
Right.
neither one of you knows.
Yeah.
That's
That
not
person
allowed.
has to be a
Okay.
participant in the conversation.
Okay.
So you see that in criminal cases all the time.
Yeah,
You
that's
suspect somebody's a suspect. You don't have enough evidence to arrest them, or maybe you do, but you want more. So you have a witness or somebody call them up on the phone and try to get them to make some admissions. It's called a controlled call. Happens in criminal
Right.
cases
Okay,
all
but
the time.
what about in the movies where they have a van outside and they're basically tapping whatever's going on in
Right.
the house? They're not aware of a conversation.
But they've probably gotten a search warrant. So
Yes.
they've
So
had a
that's different.
judge say there's probable cause to do this, and they're going to sign.
Okay.
They're going to make it right an application to
Right.
a Supreme or county court judge that says there's reasonable cause to believe, as I think that's the standard, that a crime is being committed or about to be committed. Here's why we believe that, and then the judge gives them authority.
And then that's okay. Okay. That makes sense.
And
Right.
hence why you see so much burner phones. And if you're a really big drug dealers are moving their phones really
For
fast
example.
because it takes a certain amount of time to get onto a phone line.
Mm-hmm.
And if the theory for those entrepreneurs is if you get a new phone, you can get a new phone faster than they can go to a judge to get a warrant.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what about video? Like if
So-
you take a video of me at work, can
So-
you?
I think that if it's the same scenario, you can. If you're recording, you're at work and you're doing an HR conversation, I think it would be the same,
I
but there
think-
are certain unlawful surveillance laws.
So generally, unlawful surveillance laws, the ones that I know of, involve sexual performance. You cannot. That's not a one-party consent. That's a two-party consent.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Or any area where you have an expectation of privacy, and it could be an area where you would get undressed.
Gotcha. So like
but
if you were
you're-
a celebrity outside and someone was taking a video of you, like that's
obviously
That's fair
allowed.
game.
illegal.
Paparazzi does it every day.
Right.
I think the case from law school is New York Times is the
Yeah.
expectation of privacy thing.
Right.
But if you were like a celebrity and you were at your house and you're indoors, that's obviously like a private setting.
Yeah,
So
I mean, your
then
living
the
room
laws
is a
are different.
place. Yeah. You have an expectation of privacy in your living room, right? It's a place where you might get undressed. That would,
I don't know what you do in your living
Yeah,
room,
well-
but hey,
put a surveillance video of celebrity's living room and find out. Right?
Okay.
celebrity. Mike thinks he's a celebrity.
Yes.
I don't think so. But please don't put cameras in my living room.
That's funny.
But if you weren't one, could you?
I don't think so. I think it'd be
Like if you
an
want a
interesting
security,
question. So
like
if
let's
you,
say security reasons. Like if I want to put a video or a camera at my house, do I
You
have to tell
can.
everyone that comes into my house like, hey, there's a video over here?
No,
Well,
because I don't think
Or
I don't think
recording
those
over here?
people have an expectation of privacy in your house.
Even in the living room?
well, I think what if you had a nanny? I think you.
Yes. Like, don't you
I
have the
think-
right to be known that you're recorded?
I think that it's probably the best practice to let the nanny know ahead of time.
Yeah.
Hey, we
Well,
have
what
a
the
surveillance
hell-
video in
What the
every
hell
room.
good is the surveillance video of the nanny? The nanny cam's no good if you tell the nanny you got it.
Well,
True.
if she's well, I understand, but I think it's probably best to let them know, because if they go in the bedroom and they wanted to go to the gym after work, and they
Right.
went in one of the bedrooms and they got naked and put their gym clothes on, and now
Yeah.
you have a recording of them in one of the bedrooms and you didn't tell them about it.
Right.
I can just see why.
That would be.
But that brings up another. So crimes, generally speaking, with some exceptions, have an intent element. So if you have surveillance to make sure there's no burglars at your house, and some woman gets naked in front of your
Right.
Doorbell, it's not like you.
Why is it gotta be a woman?
I'm not.
Couldn't it
I'm
be
not
a
saying
man?
that. I'm not saying that
Whoever.
they'd be
Well, I was
prosecuted,
going-
but I just think maybe best practice, right,
Gotcha.
is just to avoid an uncomfortable situation. Maybe you'd
Yeah.
want to let them know.
Okay, so let's iron this out. You have a video in your living room, or I'm sorry, you have a camera in your living room because you want to make sure no one's going to burglarize your house. Legal or not legal to tell anyone that there's a camera there
I don't think you legally have to tell someone if it's in your own house.
in your own home. In a general area, so like a bathroom or
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
where
I think a bathroom, yes.
Yeah,
you
the
would.
bathroom. I mean, I think the bathroom's pretty clear. That's That's a case that happened. I know it happened out in Wayne County probably 15 or so years ago. Bathroom at a marina where people had boats and they would go in there to get changed, and the owner had a camera. He went to prison.
but his intent was not good.
Right.
His intent was not to prevent burglaries. We'll say.
Right.
Yes.
Like someone stealing the soap at the bathroom.
Yeah.
All right. So these are good ones. Let me see. All right. So chiropractor broke my jaw. I went to see a chiropractor about ongoing tension and clicking and popping in my jaw. He recommended snapping my jaw like those windows were applied and like those windows. I don't know if that's a typo, but basically with sudden pressure as the patient's jaw opens. So they're going to snap the jaw back into place, essentially. This individual heard the most sickening crunch and crack and pain radiating from the jaw right after. And the doctor grabbed the jaw and pulled it back to the other side and heard another crunch. And then they left and went to the ER and was unable to move their jaw. Turns out the chiropractor literally broke my, what is that? How do you say? Something.
Couldn't tell ya.
Condyle.
We'll
probably in
put
their
it
jaw.
on the screen.
Jawbone.
Yes, off and displaced my discs. MRIs and X-rays have confirmed the fracture is reduced, and however, they can't afford surgery, and now they want to know what their legal recourse is.
Sue their ass.
For sure. Yeah.
Is that and that's a med mail?
Is a chiropractor a doctor? That's
Yes.
ongoing.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
they have a doctorate, right?
Yeah, not an MD.
It's a medical facility.
There's
so.
chiropractors that. Matt Keem Webster Chiropractic, I highly recommend him. He's fixed me up a few times. But some of them, they hurt people sometimes.
Right.
It's always a little scary when all that popping's going on, but Matt never hurt me.
Yeah, you don't go there expecting to get your
No.
jaw broken.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Correct. But is there an assumption of risk to going to a chiropractor knowing that there's an element of getting hurt?
Right, that's probably, it's the same analysis in all kinds of medical cases that we're doing, right? A bad outcome doesn't necessarily mean malpractice, but I think that fact pattern to me,
Seems iffy.
Right.
if you're just blasting somebody's jaw and breaking their jaw, that doesn't seem like a risk associated with
Agreed.
a
Right.
chiro.
Right.
What about a situation where, a lot of chiropractors that do the upper neck and head area, there's a potential when you snap that you're breaking off like a blood vessel or something, and clots could get loosened, and then you can have a stroke. So your risk apparently goes up. This is just like what I've heard. Something like that, if you go to a chiropractor and it causes a stroke from a blood clot getting loose or whatever, is that potentially an issue? Like, how do you prove that, you know?
Sure. I mean, I guess if you get your neck popped and you have a stroke 5 minutes later and the doctor says that's because of what
you did.
what the chiropractor did. I've also heard of hearing problems from neck adjustments where something to do with the cochlear something or other of the ear can be affected from the adjustments and can cause serious hearing loss. And I think those are good. Those are cases that should not.
That shouldn't happen.
That they shouldn't happen. It's a mistake by the chiro. I think they get sued and lose.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I love
Agreed.
going to a good chiropractor, though. You just
Never
feel
been.
so much better.
Never been to a chiropractor.
Oh my gosh.
After that story, I don't know if I will. Talking about blood
don't let
clots.
them touch your jaw.
Yeah, leave my jaw where it is.
I think it's important to not just go to go. Like, you should, in my opinion, have a reason to go.
Yeah, just given the nature of what we do, I've talked to Matt a bunch about, people who are in car accidents and they go to a chiropractor, or I had a family member who was going to a chiropractor a bunch and they weren't getting better. Well, chiropractors do a certain thing. They don't necessarily fix broken bones. They don't. They
Or the
can't-
muscle. So if the
or-
muscle is so tense, they can't really adjust the bones because the muscle just pulls it back. So there has to be other
If you have a
treatment.
fractured vertebrae,
Yeah, that's not going to work.
a little massage to your back is not going to heal the fractured vertebrae. Or if you have, in the case of my family member, a tumor growing into your spine, that's cancer, and that's not going to be fixed by a chiropractor. And if you don't get better after, and I think Matt, I don't want to speak for him, but what I remember him saying was, if we're not making progress after a month, we're going to refer somebody for X-rays, MRIs, that kind of thing. They can't heal everything, nor should they. That's not what you're expecting when you go to a chiropractor.
Right. Several people that the phone didn't work, and even a few came in to the cell and picked it up and said it doesn't work, and then proceeded to leave me alone there. By the time I was released, there was a Facebook group made where my loved ones were trying to find me. Have you seen my daughter? I was then terminated from my job of 8 years after tearfully explaining to them that I could not call, and I couldn't call anyone. Do I have a right to do I have a right to a phone call even as a prisoner?
Yes. In the state of New York, after you are arrested, you have the right to not just call an attorney, but also call a family member or a friend and let them know where you are. I think the key point about that, though, and it's their situation as well, is that it's after arrest, right? So under the law, you don't have that right if it's going to impede an investigation.
Yeah, you're entitled to a phone call, right?
After you're arrested.
after arrest, right? But if you're, let's take a DWI for an example. If an officer is conducting an investigation and you're at the scene of a crime, right? You're not under arrest at that point. You don't have a right to have a phone call at that point. But when they book you for the DWI, in her case, after she was arrested, right, that right does attach in New York. And they do have a right to call a family member or a friend and let them know where they are.
Or say it's a murder, and you're interrogating, the police are interrogating a suspect. They can't just say, they have the right to an attorney, they have the right to remain silent, but they don't say, hey, I want to call my mom in the middle of the interview process.
Right. Or a search warrant. If they're doing a search warrant at your house and you're detained during the search warrant, at that point, the officer doesn't have to let you borrow their phone so you can call mom and have a conversation.
But, okay, mom and an attorney is different, because I feel like we've definitely had phone calls where someone is actively getting arrested.
Yeah. Well, you can, maybe the officer lets you call someone on your cell phone. It doesn't stop you, but that's different than saying that you have the right to.
Okay.
That doesn't attach until you're under arrest, under the criminal procedure law.
Yeah, and so Officer Weech was a police officer with Rochester Police Department who I knew, who I'm sure you knew. A lot of DWIs, did a lot of DWI arrests. He was a very skilled and thorough police officer, and he would regularly let people call lawyers. I think he would call from his own phone if he wanted to, and he said, look, I got the evidence. I'm doing a good job. Your lawyer can say whatever they want to say. I have video or a breath test that shows you were intoxicated, and I'd be happy to share the evidence that I have with them. And
it's probably a smart move on his end, because it's preserving the case. Like, now it's going to be legally sound that he has an attorney present. Or the other way.
I defended a lot of people who were arrested by Officer Weech over the years. He made the many arrests. And I always took it as confidence. I thought he was, he has confidence in the police work that he's doing, in the investigation that he's doing. I got nothing to hide. And it came across to me, at least, as this is a professional police officer who's doing things by the book, not someone who's trying to hide behind the cloak of I have the right to do as a police officer. Like, I'll share it with you because this person broke the law, and I'm just trying to find people who broke the law.
Right. And I think that it's important to note too that that doesn't have anything to do with your right to remain silent, right? So just because at that point you don't have the right to talk to an attorney or call a family member doesn't mean that you have to speak with the officer. You still have the right to remain silent, but the right to an attorney doesn't attach until arrest.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense.
The other weird thing about that comment is, I'm guessing that's not New York.
It doesn't say. Oh, the comment here is DC. So this person commented to this and said, you have a constitutional right to call an attorney generally, though I do not know exactly. And so something about
that's, I don't know, a constitutional right to call an attorney generally. That's not.
You have the right.
There's way more nuance than that.
You have the right to an attorney, and it doesn't say exactly when, right?
Right.
You have the right to due process. I think you have a constitutional right to due process, which is
but
the amendment to the Constitution. So.
Right. And then, New York has its own laws, the criminal procedure law, and they specifically delineate the right to call an attorney or family member after arrest. And you have the right to an attorney after arrest. An officer has to review your Miranda rights. They have to tell you have the right to an attorney, that if you can't afford one can be appointed. And that would happen at arraignment if you couldn't afford one.
You would think, though, that if you're in jail for 5 days, there would have been a point in time that someone would have contacted someone to say,
that's why I don't think it's
hey,
New York.
Your
I don't
family
think it's
member
New York,
is here, or anything. You know what I mean?
In
You would
New
think
York-
someone would do a missing missing report.
Well, in New York, you would have been to court within 5 days. You can't hold some. So here, if you get picked up on a Saturday, you're going to go to court on a Monday.
Not anymore.
Depending on the charge.
Now on Sundays, they have in-person, at least in Rochester City Court.
Right, but in some places they don't, or they have tap calendars maybe in the outlying areas, but
But it's not 5 days.
A lot of
not 5
immediate
days.
arraignments. A lot of immediate arraignments here in Monroe County.
Immediate arraignments and a lot of appearance tickets if it's a non-qualifying offense. So,
Right.
required release.
I mean, I can't even imagine a scenario in this county where you'd be held for even more than a few days without seeing a judge.
I feel like that's like kidnapping almost, in my opinion. That concludes this episode of the King Law Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and check out our socials at King Law Attorneys. And if you've happened to have been injured or charged with a crime, now you know who to call. King Law. Take charge.